All right, let's jump right in. We're about to go on a journey deep into the Earth's past to really understand the buried power that fuels pretty much everything we do today. We're talking about coal and petroleum, the stuff that literally runs our world. But that brings up a huge question, doesn't it? One that really gets to the heart of our modern lives. Can we actually keep using these natural resources forever? It seems like a simple question, but trust me, the answer is anything but. So let's break it down. You see, natural resources basically fall into two big groups. On one hand, you've got the inexhaustible kind. Think sunlight, air, stuff that's unlimited. We just can't run out of it. But then you have the exhaustible resources. These are the ones that are finite. Once they're gone, they're gone. And this group includes things like forests, minerals, and yep, you guessed it, our main topics, coal and petroleum. The source material gives us a perfect way to think about this. Imagine a big container of treats. It's meant for 3 generations. Now, what if the first generation is super greedy and takes way more than its fair share? Then the second generation comes along. By the time the third generation shows up, what's going to be left for them? It's a great analogy that makes you wonder, are we being too greedy right now with resources like coal? So let's start there with that ancient treasure, coal. And to really understand it, we need to rewind the clock. And I mean way back. So picture this. It's 300 million years ago. The world looks nothing like it does today. It's covered in these incredibly dense, lush forests, all sitting in low, swampy wetland areas. And through natural stuff like flooding, these huge forests would die and get buried under thick layers of soil. And this is where the real transformation starts. As more and more dirt and rock piled on top, the temperature and the pressure just skyrocketed. Deep underground, those dead plants were slowly cooked and compressed into coal. The whole process is called carbonization. It's basically nature's giant, super slow pressure cooker, turning ancient forests into the hard, black rock we know today. And this is the final result, a modern coal mine. This is the end of that 300 million year journey. Every single chunk of coal that gets dug out of the ground is like a tiny, powerful time capsule, a concentrated piece of ancient sunlight, a battery that took eons to charge. Pretty incredible, right? And boy, have we put that energy to use over the centuries. It used to be a common fuel for cooking. It famously powered the steam engines that kicked off the entire Industrial Revolution. And today, it's still a massive source of fuel for power plants that generate our electricity and is used in all sorts of industries. Okay, so that's coal. Now let's switch gears and talk about its famous cousin, the one they often call liquid gold, petroleum. Now, petroleum is also a fossil fuel, but its origin story is completely different. This time, we're not talking about giant forests on land. We're going underwater. Petroleum was formed from countless tiny organisms that lived in the sea. When they died, their bodies sank to the ocean floor, got covered by sand and clay, and, well, you know the drill by now. Millions of years of intense heat and pressure worked their magic, turning them into oil and natural gas. This diagram shows perfectly how we find these deposits today. They're trapped under layers of rock they can't pass through. And notice the layers, it makes perfect sense. You've often got water at the very bottom, oil, being lighter than water, floats on top of it, and natural gas, which is even lighter than oil, gets trapped in a layer above everything else. It's just simple physics. And here's a wild thought. Even though this stuff took millions and millions of years to form, we've only been tapping into it for a historical blink of an eye. The world's very first oil well was drilled in 1859 in the United States. Just 8 years after that, in 1867, they found oil in Assam, India. The whole age of oil has really just begun. But the stuff that first comes out of the ground, this dark, thick, gooey liquid called crude oil, you can't just pump that straight into your car. Nope. First, it has to be sent to a place like this, a petroleum refinery. This is basically a giant chemical plant where they separate the crude oil into all its different useful parts. And the range of stuff we get from it is just incredible. I mean, look at this table. From that one raw material, we get LPG for our barbecue grills, petrol for cars, kerosene for jet fuel, diesel for trucks, and even bitumen to pave our roads. And beyond that, we get petrochemicals, the building blocks for things like plastics, detergents, and synthetic fibers. It is truly woven into the very fabric of our modern lives. And hey, let's not forget about natural gas. It's usually found hanging out right there with the petroleum deposits. It's a really important fuel because it's so much easier to transport through pipelines, and it's less polluting than other fossil fuels. It's a real workhorse for generating power and heating homes. So, this brings us full circle. We've seen where these amazing fuels come from and just how deeply we depend on them. And that brings us right back to our first big question, and the whole dilemma of this finite gift from the Earth. Now, here's a fact from the source material that should really make you pause. Just let this sink in. It took millions of years to create these fuels, but at the rate we're using them, the known reserves might only last a few hundred more years. The imbalance between creation time and consumption time is just staggering. And it's not just about the tank running empty. There's another huge side to this coin. Burning these fuels is a major cause of air pollution. And of course, their use is directly linked to global warming. So we're facing a double whammy: scarcity and serious environmental impacts. So what can any of us do? Well, in India, an organization called the Petroleum Conservation Research Association, or PCRA, gives some great advice. And it's all simple, practical stuff. Drive at a steady, moderate speed instead of racing around. Turn your engine off at long traffic lights. Make sure your tire pressure is correct, and get your car serviced regularly. These are small actions for sure, but when they're multiplied by millions of people, they can really start to make a difference. And that leaves us with this final, massive thought. For the last century and a half, our entire modern world, our cities, our transportation, our whole way of life has been built on a foundation of this buried, ancient energy. We know it's a finite resource, and we know using it has consequences, which leads to the biggest question of all. What are we going to build our future on?